Management Chapter 13 Managing Communication. Management Chapter 13 Managing Communication and Information, Technology and Managerial Communication. 13 to explain how technology affects managerial communication. Information technology, IT, has radically changed the way organizational members work and communicate, improves managers' ability to monitor individual and team performance, allows employees to have more complete information to make faster decisions, provides employees more opportunities to collaborate and share information, allows employees to be fully accessible 24/7. Two IT developments have had a significant effect on managerial communication. Networked communication. In a networked communication system, organizational computers are linked through compatible hardware and software, creating an integrated organizational network. Employees communicate with each other and get information wherever they are. Networked communication applications, email, instantaneous transmission of messages on networked computers, plus messages read at receivers, convenience, minus slow and cumbersome, plus fast, cheap, efficient and convenient, plus print documents if needed. Instant messaging, interactive, real-time communication among computer users who are logged on to the computer network at the same time, plus instantaneous communication without waiting for colleagues to read email, minus potential network and data security breaches, minus users must be logged on at the same time. Voicemail, a system that digitizes a spoken message, transmits it over the network, and stores it for a receiver to retrieve later, plus information transmitted without receiver being physically present, minus no immediate feedback, plus message can be saved, deleted, or rerouted. Fax machines transmit documents containing both text and graphics over ordinary telephone lines, plus printed form of information easily and quickly shared by organization members, minus privacy can be compromised. Electronic data interchange, ED, organizations exchange business transaction documents such as invoices or purchase orders, using direct computer-to-computer networks, plus saves time and money by eliminating printing and handling of paper documents. Teleconference and video conference meetings confer simultaneously by telephone, email, or video screens. Plus, participants don't need to be in same physical location to share information and collaborate. Plus, saves travel money. Organizational intranet, an organizational communication network using internet technology that's accessible only to organizational employees. Plus, share information and collaborate on documents and projects. Plus, access company policy manuals and employee-specific materials, minus possible network and data security breaches. Organizational extranet, an organizational communication network using internet technology that allows authorized organizational users to communicate with certain outsiders such as customers or vendors. Plus, faster and more convenient communication, minus concerns about network and data security breaches. Internet-based voice-video communication, internet-based communication services, plus fast and convenient communication, minus concerns about network and data security breaches. Wireless communication systems have benefits. Employees can be connected without being physically plugged in at work. Mobile technology is extremely popular. Improving the way you work is the payoff. Wireless communication applications, people don't have to be physically at the office in order to communicate, collaborate, and share information with managers and colleagues. Managers and employees keep in touch using smartphones, tablet computers, notebook computers, and mobile pocket communication devices, and wireless communication works anywhere. People can send and receive information from the summit of Mt. Everest to the remotest locations on the planet. Technology and the manager's job. Office of tomorrow. The office of tomorrow is still likely to resemble in some ways the office of today. There probably won't be mail delivery by robots on hovercraft, nor any teleportation devices. Most of the changes, however, will likely be in the way we communicate. Employees will rely on multiple channels of communication with heavy reliance on social networks, text messaging, instant messaging, mobile technology, and dashboard apps that allow employees to message each other directly. Smartphones will be as powerful as today's mainframes, meaning employees will be able to do heavy computing on the go. Software will be able to track where employees are and blend that data with information about current projects and suggest potential collaborators. Email is likely to decline in popularity, largely because other channels are faster, more fluid, and more immediate. Accurately forecasting tomorrow's technology is impossible, but several patterns seem to be evolving. For instance, the combining of functions in a single device is likely to result in employees having a single product that will combine phone, text messaging, internet access, video camera, teleconferencing, and language translator. It will allow people to read proposals, legal papers, news, or almost any document digitally. It won't need a keyboard and will operate via voice commands. It's also likely not to be handheld but rather something akin to combining reading glasses and an earpiece. You'll read documents through the lenses of what look like normal reading glasses, and the earpiece microphone will make it hands-free. Google Glass is an example of this wearable technology. As this type of technology becomes more common, organizations will have to address usage issues regarding information security and possible legal dilemmas. Another outcome made possible by technology will be a significant decrease in business travel. Improvements in computer-mediated groupway will allow individuals to conduct meetings in environments that closely simulate face-to-face interactions. In these settings, real-time translations will be transcribed and displayed on screen, and teleconferences will be able to hear and see the words. What communication issues do managers face today? Pulse lunches. That's what managers at Citibank's offices throughout Malaysia use to address pressing problems of declining customer loyalty and staff morale and increased employee turnover. By connecting with employees and listening to their concerns, that is, taking their pulse during informal lunch settings, managers were able to make changes that boosted both customer loyalty and employee morale by more than 50% and reduced employee turnover to nearly zero. Being an effective communicator in today's organizations means being connected most importantly to employees and customers, but in reality, to any of the organization's stakeholders. In this section, we examine 5 communication issues of particular significance to today's managers. Managing communication in an internet world. Managing the organization's knowledge resources, communicating with customers, getting employee input, and communicating ethically. How do we manage communication in an internet world? Lars Dalgaard, founder and chief executive of SuccessFactors, a human resource management software company, recently sent an email to his employees banning in-house email for a week. His goal? Getting employees to authentically address issues amongst each other. And he's not alone. Other companies have tried the same thing. As we discussed earlier, email can consume employees, but it's not always easy for them to let go of it, even when they know it can be intoxicating. But email is only one communication challenge in this internet world. A recent survey found that 20% of employees at large companies say they contribute regularly to blogs, social networks, Wikis, and other web services. Managers are learning, the hard way sometimes, that all this new technology has created special communication challenges. The 2 main ones are, 1, legal and security issues, and 2, lack of personal interaction. Legal and security issues. Chevron paid $2.2 million to settle a sexual harassment lawsuit stemming from inappropriate jokes being sent by employees over company email. UK firm Norwich Union had to pay £450,000 in an out-of-court settlement after an employee sent an email stating that its competitor, Western Provident Association, was in financial difficulties. Whole Foods Market was investigated by federal regulators and its board after CEO John P. Mackey used a pseudonym to post comments on a blog attacking the company's rival Wild Oats Markets. Although email, blogs, tweets, and other forms of online communication are quick and easy ways to communicate, managers need to be aware of potential legal problems from inappropriate usage. Electronic information is potentially admissible in court. For instance, during the Enron trial, prosecutors entered into evidence emails and other documents they say showed that the defendants defrauded investors. Says one expert, today, email and instant messaging are the electronic equivalent of DNA evidence. But legal problems aren't the only issue, security concerns are an issue as well. A survey addressing outbound email and content security found that 26% of the companies surveyed saw their businesses affected by the exposure of sensitive or embarrassing information. Managers need to ensure that confidential information is kept confidential. Employee emails and blogs should not communicate inadvertently or purposely proprietary information. Corporate computer and email systems should be protected against hackers, people who try to gain unauthorized access to computer systems, and spam. electronic junk mail. These serious issues must be addressed if the benefits of communication technology are to be realized. Personal interaction. It may be called social media, but another communication challenge posed by the internet age we live and work in is the lack of personal interaction. Even when two people are communicating face-to-face, understanding is not always achieved. However, it can be especially challenging to achieve understanding and collaborate on getting work done when communication takes place in a virtual environment. In response, some companies have banned email on certain days, as we saw earlier. Others have simply encouraged employees to collaborate more in person. Yet, sometimes and in some situations, personal interaction isn't physically possible. Your colleagues work across the continent or even across the globe. In those instances, real-time collaboration software, such as private workplace wikis, blogs, instant messengers, and other types of groupway, may be a better communication choice than sending an email and waiting for a response. Instead of fighting it, some companies are encouraging employees to utilize the power of social networks to collaborate on work and to build strong connections. This trend is especially appealing to younger workers who are comfortable with this communication medium. Some companies have gone as far as to create their own in-house social networks. For instance, employees at Starcom Media Vest Group tap into SMG Connected to find colleague profiles that outline their jobs, list the brands they admire, and describe their values. A company vice president says, "Giving our employees a way to connect over the internet around the world made sense, because they were doing it anyway." Employees and social media. 77% say they use social media to connect with colleagues. 35% say that social media has damaged a work relationship. 61% say that social media has led to new or better work relationships. 32% say they use social media to enhance work-related projects or solve problems. How does knowledge management affect communication? Part of a manager's responsibility in fostering an environment conducive to learning and effective communications is to create learning capabilities throughout the organization. These opportunities should extend from the lowest to the highest levels in all areas. How can managers create such an environment? An important step is recognizing the value of knowledge as a major resource, just like cash, raw materials, or office equipment. To illustrate the value of knowledge, think about how you register for your college classes. Do you talk to others who have had a certain professor? Do you listen to their experiences with this individual and make your decision based on what they have to say, their knowledge about the situation? If you do, you're tapping into the value of knowledge. But in an organization, just recognizing the value of accumulated knowledge or wisdom isn't enough. Managers must deliberately manage that base of knowledge. Knowledge management involves cultivating a learning culture in which organizational members systematically gather knowledge and share it with others in the organization, so as to achieve better performance. For instance, accountants and consultants at Ernst & Young document best practices that they've developed, unusual problems they've dealt with, and other work information. This knowledge is then shared with all employees through computer-based applications and through community of interest teams that meet regularly throughout the company. Many other organizations, including General Electric, Toyota, and Hewlett-Packard, have recognized the importance of knowledge management within a learning organization. See Chapter 6. Today's technologies are helping improve knowledge management and facilitating organizational communications and decision-making. What's involved with managing the organization's knowledge resources? Cara Johnson is a materials expert at product design firm IDEA. To make finding the right materials easier, she built a master library of samples linked to a database that explains their properties and manufacturing processes. What Johnson is doing is managing knowledge and making it easier for others at IDEA to learn and benefit from her knowledge. That's what today's managers need to do with the organization's knowledge resources to make it easy for employees to communicate and share their knowledge so they can learn from each other ways to do their jobs more effectively and efficiently. One way organizations can do this is to build online information databases that employees can access. For example, William Wrigley Jr. Company launched an interactive website that allows sales agents to access marketing data and other product information. The sales agents can question company experts about products or search an online knowledge bank. In its first year, Wrigley estimates that the site cut research time of the sales force by 15,000 hours, making them more efficient and effective. This one example, among many others, shows how managers can use communication tools to manage this valuable organizational resource called knowledge. In addition to online information databases for sharing knowledge, companies can create communities of practice, which are groups of people who share a concern, a set of problems, or a passion about a topic, and who deepen their knowledge and expertise in that area by interacting on an ongoing basis. To make these communities of practice work, however, it's important to maintain strong human interactions through communication using such essential tools as interactive websites, email, and video conferencing. In addition, these groups face the same communication problems that individuals face: filtering, emotions, defensiveness, over-documentation, and so forth. However, groups can resolve these issues by focusing on the same suggestions we discussed earlier. What role does communication play in customer service? You've been a customer many times. In fact, you probably find yourself in a customer service encounter several times a day. So what does a customer service encounter have to do with communication? As it turns out, a lot. What communication takes place and how it takes place can have a significant impact on a customer's satisfaction with the service and the likelihood of being a repeat customer. Managers in service organizations need to make sure that employees who interact with customers are communicating appropriately and effectively with those customers. How? By first recognizing the three components in any service delivery process: the customer, the service organization, and the individual service provider. Each plays a role in whether communication is working. Obviously, managers don't have a lot of control over what or how the customer communicates, but they can influence the other two. An organization with a strong service culture already values taking care of customers, finding out what their needs are, meeting those needs, and following up to make sure that their needs were met satisfactorily. Each of these activities involves communication, whether face-to-face, by phone or email, or through other channels. In addition, communication is part of the specific customer service strategies the organization pursues. One strategy that many service organizations use is personalization. For instance, at Ritz-Carlton hotels, customers are provided with more than a clean bed and room. Customers who have stayed at a location previously and indicated that certain items are important to them, such as extra pillows, hot chocolate, or a certain brand of shampoo, will find those items waiting in their room at arrival. The hotel's database allows service to be personalized to customers' expectations. In addition, all employees are asked to communicate information related to service provision. For instance, if a room attendant overhears guests talking about celebrating an anniversary, he or she is supposed to relay the information so something special can be done. Communication plays an important role in the hotel's customer personalization strategy. Communication also is important to the individual service provider or contact employee. The quality of the interpersonal interaction between the customer and that contact employee does influence customer satisfaction, especially when the service encounter isn't up to expectations. People on the front line involved with those critical service encounters are often the first to hear about or notice service failures or breakdowns. They must decide how and what to communicate during these instances. Their ability to listen actively and communicate appropriately with the customer goes a long way in whether the situation is resolved to the customer's satisfaction or spirals out of control. Another important communication concern for the individual service provider is making sure that he or she has the information needed to deal with customers efficiently and effectively. If the service provider doesn't personally have the information, there should be some way to get the information easily and promptly. How can we get employee input, and why should we? Nokia's intranet soapbox, known as Blog Hub, is open to employee bloggers around the world. There, employees have griped about their employer, but rather than shutting it down, Nokia managers want them to fire away. They feel that Nokia's growth and success can be attributed to a history of encouraging employees to say whatever's on their minds, with faith that smarter ideas will result. In today's challenging environment, companies need to get input from their employees. Have you ever worked somewhere that had an employee suggestion box? When an employee had an idea about a new way of doing something, such as reducing costs, improving delivery time, and so forth, it went into the suggestion box, where it usually sat until someone decided to empty the box. Business people frequently joked about the suggestion box, and cartoonists lambasted the futility of putting ideas in the employee suggestion box. Unfortunately, this attitude about suggestion boxes still persists in many organizations, but it shouldn't. Managers do business in a world today where you can't afford to ignore such potentially valuable information. Exhibit 13-4 lists some suggestions for letting employees know that their opinions matter. How to let employees know their input matters. Hold town hall meetings where information is shared and input solicited. Provide information about what's going on, good and bad. Invest in training so that employees see how they impact the customer experience. Analyze problems together, managers and employees. Make it easy for employees to give input by setting up different ways for them to do so: online, suggestion box, pre-printed cards, and so forth. Why should managers be concerned with communicating ethically? 15% of employees say they wish their managers would improve their communication skills, especially in clarity and transparency. It's particularly important today that a company's communication efforts be ethical. Ethical communication includes all relevant information, is true in every sense, and is not deceptive in any way. On the other hand, unethical communication often distorts the truth or manipulates audiences. What are some ways that companies communicate unethically? It could be by omitting essential information. For instance, not telling employees that an impending merger is going to mean some of them will lose their jobs is unethical. It's also unethical to plagiarize, which is presenting someone else's words or other creative product as your own. It would also be unethical communication to selectively misquote, misrepresent numbers, distort visuals, and fail to respect privacy or information security needs. For instance, although British Petroleum attempted to communicate openly and truthfully about the Gulf Coast oil spill, the public felt that much of the company's communication had some unethical elements to it. So how can managers encourage ethical communications? One thing is to establish clear guidelines for ethical behavior, including ethical business communication. In a global survey by the International Association of Business Communicators, 70% of communication professionals said their companies clearly define what is considered ethical and unethical behavior. If no clear guidelines exist, it's important to answer the following questions. Has the situation been defined fairly and accurately? Why is the message being communicated? How will the people who may be affected by the message or who receive the message be impacted? Does the message help achieve the greatest possible good while minimizing possible harm? Will this decision that appears to be ethical now seem so in the future? How comfortable are you with your communication effort? What would a person you admire think of it? Remember that as a manager, you have a responsibility to think through your communication choices and the consequences of those choices. If you always remember that, you're likely to have ethical communication. 13 Review Learning Outcomes Summary 13-1 Describe what managers need to know about communicating effectively. Communication is the transfer and understanding of meaning. The communication process consists of 7 elements. First, a sender or source has a message. A message is a purpose to be conveyed. Encoding converts a message into symbols. A channel provides the medium along which a message travels. Decoding happens when the receiver retranslates a sender's message. Finally, feedback lets the sender know whether the communication was successful. The barriers to effective communication include filtering emotions, information overload, defensiveness, language, and national culture. Managers can overcome these barriers by using feedback, simplifying language, listening actively, constraining emotions, and watching for nonverbal clues. 13- To explain how technology affects managerial communication. Technology has radically changed the way organizational members communicate. It improves a manager's ability to monitor performance. It gives employees more complete information to make faster decisions. It provides employees more opportunities to collaborate and share information. And it makes it possible for people to be fully accessible anytime, anywhere. IT has affected managerial communication through the use of networked computer systems and wireless capabilities. 13-3 Discuss contemporary issues in communication. The 2 main challenges of managing communication in an internet world are the legal and security issues, and the lack of personal interaction. Organizations can manage knowledge by making it easy for employees to communicate and share their knowledge, so they can learn from each other ways to do their jobs more effectively and efficiently. One way is through online information databases, and another way is through creating communities of practice. Communicating with customers is an important managerial issue because what communication takes place and how it takes place can significantly affect a customer's satisfaction with the service and the likelihood of being a repeat customer. It's important for organizations to get input from their employees. Such potentially valuable information should not be ignored. Finally, it's important that a company's communication efforts be ethical. Ethical communication can be encouraged through clear guidelines and through answering questions that force a communicator to think through the communication choices made and the consequences of those choices. Exhibit 13-2 Barriers to Effective Communication. Filtering, the deliberate manipulation of information to make it appear more favorable to the receiver. Selective perception, receiving communications on the basis of what one selectively sees and hears depending on his or her needs, motivation, experience, background, and other personal characteristics. Information overload, when the amount of information one has to work with exceeds one's processing capacity. Emotions, how the receiver feels when a message is received. Language, words have different meanings to different people. Receivers will use their definition of words being communicated. Gender, how males and females react to communication may be different, and they each have a different communication style. National culture, communication differences arising from the different languages that individuals use to communicate, and the national culture of which they are a part. Exhibit 13-3 Overcoming Barriers to Effective Communication. Use feedback, check the accuracy of what has been communicated or what you think you heard. Simplify language, use words that the intended audience understands. Listen actively, listen for the full meaning of the message without making premature judgment or interpretation, or thinking about what you are going to say in response. Constrain emotions, recognize when your emotions are running high. When they are, don't communicate until you have calmed down. Watch nonverbal cues, be aware that your actions speak louder than your words. Keep the two consistent. Key terms. Message: a communication in writing, in speech, or by signals. Channel: the medium by which a message travels. Decoding, translating a received message. Feedback, checking to see how successfully a message has been transferred. Grapevine, an unofficial channel of communication. Body language, nonverbal communication cues such as facial expressions, gestures, and other body movements. Verbal intonation and emphasis given to words or phrases that conveys meaning. Filtering, deliberately manipulating information to make it appear more favorable to the receiver. Selective perception, selectively perceiving or hearing a communication based on your own needs, motivations, experiences, or other personal characteristics. Information overload, what results when information exceeds processing capacity. Jargon, technical language specific to a discipline or industry. Active listening, listening for full meaning without making premature judgments or interpretations. Knowledge management, cultivating a learning culture in which organizational members systematically gather knowledge and share it with others.